Hello, I'm Brian Foster, and today I'm talking about Spiritism. And today is we're doing questions and answers about Spiritism. So please, if you have a question, enter it in the comment section. I will get right to it. If not, I will go through my list of questions people had sent me previously. And if you have a question later on, if you're watching this in video format, just type in a comment with your question. I am notified by YouTube when I get a question. I will copy and paste it onto my list. But before we begin, let's have a prayer. Dear Jesus, please help us learn how to transition from a planet of atonement to a planet of regeneration. Please help us recognize the signs and signals of the love coming from you and your high angels and your legions and armies of spirits that are helping to try and show us the right path to improve ourselves on a daily basis. Amen. So, if you are interested in Spiritism, I recommend you read the books by Allan Kardec. The Spirits book is the first one I would read, and he codified that in the 1850s. What I would recommend first, though, is you may want to download my free Spiritism 101, the Third Revelation. It's in PDF form. It's free. So, of course, if you want it in Kindle or paperback or Audible, it's also in that form. And you can do that from my site, nwspiritism.com. Now, the main Allan Kardec books I think you should read after that, because the Spiritism 101 gives you an overview of Spiritism, is the Spirits book. Again, type in Allan Kardec space PDF. You'll find the Spirits book, the Mediums book, and the Gospel According to Spiritism, as well as Heaven and Hell and Genesis. The five main books are all there for free on PDF. Of course, you can order them if you go to my site, click on the picture of Allan Kardec. It'll take you to the FEB bookstore. You can order it there, or Amazon, or your local bookstore. Okay. Now, again, if you have questions, please type them in the comment section, and I will answer them right away. But let's start with one of the first questions. So, here's the question. So let's say I use a medium to contact my mother that's crossed over. Is the medium in contact with the perispirit of my mother, or is it her soul? Does that have a life of its own until its energy wanes? So let's take a picture of the perispirit and what we mean. Okay, so let's hide this for a second. Okay, so here we have. So we have what we are created here, what we are on Earth, or we are composed of three components. The spirit, which is an encapsulated set of logic with all our memories, our personality, everything. That's what we're trying to improve on while we're on Earth. Our perispirit, which is connected to our spirit, which is then when we are in physical form, it's connected to every cell in our body. Now, when we are not in physical form, the perispirit is detached from the body, and it becomes what is the visible form of the spirit. You don't have to appear as a visible form. You can appear as your spirit. So all the perispirit is, and actually I'll go on more what it does. It mainly is what your ideal of yourself, of what you should look like. And you can change that, right? If you want to look older, you look younger. You want to look like you do have wings, you have wings. If you want to look like how you looked when you're from your favorite planet as an alien with green skin, you can do that. So you're not really talking to your mother only in her perispirit. The perispirit and spirit are always attached. Just look at the perispirit as the clothing of the spirit. In fact, even Paul wrote about the perispirit. He didn't say it directly. There's a lot of things he wrote, letters to the churches. He said, we have to put on another set of clothes over our other set of clothes. I forgot which verse that is in, but that's what he meant by the perispirit. We already have a set of clothes in the spirit world, and in the physical world, we put on another set of clothes over that. And then, of course, as we get older and embarrassed, we put on another set of clothes over that. So, to answer the question of do I contact with the perispirit of my mother, or it is her soul? It is her soul that you are contacting your mother, and your perispirit does not have a life of its own. It has the appearance of how it wants to look. Now, the perispirit will do some other things too. For every life you have lived in the past, whatever planet, the paraspirit retains the language of what you learned. So if you used to be in the Roman Empire, and then you go and you talk to a spirit that's pretty low, and the spirit talks Latin to you, it's like a automatic translator. You'll automatically understand if that person's not doing telepathy, mind to mind. If it's not a high spirit, you'll automatically understand what that person is telling you because your paraspirit is translating for you. So it does some wonderful things. So the answer is yes. You talk to her, to her spirit, and in I know some people do not do this, but the um, what am I trying to say? Spiritists must be late. Spiritists use spirit and soul interchangeably. Some people use it to denote two different things. So I have a hard time talking today. I don't know why. Okay, let's hide this. I got a question. When Jesus resurrected and until he ascended 40 days later, was that the paraspirit? Yes, that's what they saw. They saw the paraspirit. And that's why in Catholic dogma and in a lot of Christian dogma also is you think that after the apocalypse, people are resurrected. And what's resurrected means is that it's your original body, and the one time you were here is reformed from the cells that have dispersed into the ground. And actually, that's not the case. The apocalypse is going on as we speak. It's the spirits who are not learning from here, and they're going to other planets. While eventually we're only going to have good spirits. Eventually, when we become a planet of generation, we're not going to have all these lower spirits around us giving us uh, ridiculous ideas and inspirations to act upon. No, those are going to be gone. That part of the test is going to be over. Good news on that. So Jesus manifested himself, and he looked as he wanted to look because the spirit can tell the paraspirit how it wants to look. Now, what I've heard and what I've read from spirits in heaven is that Jesus appears slightly different every time. And in fact, one spirit says he's never seen Jesus with a beard. But that doesn't mean he hasn't appeared so. But here on earth, we always see his pictures with a beard. And that's probably how he most likely reappeared, let's say, in that house, right, with all the apostles in there. So that's what was there. And he made his paraspirit through his force of his mind. He was a high spirit. He can do that. And he used that to be as dense as possible. And so, and of course, you had to be a high spirit to do that. If you're just a regular spirit on the earth, you're not going to be able to have that much power. So he made it look exactly like him. Now he could have come back and looked different if he had so chosen. Of course, he did not. Now, the other interesting thing, and the question leads to a lot of facts from the spirit world, is they said, okay, now, how do you think Jesus appeared in that room in Jerusalem? Goes, he didn't travel there, because you're in heaven. He says, and we think of heaven as we have the earth, right? We have kind of the lower zones around the earth up to the reaches of heaven, and below the crust of the earth we have the dark abyss, right, which is kind of a purgatory. And we look at things in distance, right? But then, of course, we're told, besides time not existing, there is no such thing as distance in the spirit world. There is presence in absence. And this is where the more you can understand that, and I think a way to understand how Jesus appeared in that room is think of you're playing a video game and you want your character to appear in the second room on the left in that castle. And your character appears. Now, how did your character appear there? You commanded it through the software of the game, and that character then was given, depending on your level of play, right, and what you can do in the game, that character appeared in that room. Maybe other characters were there, but that character appeared in that room. Did that character in software travel from where you created that character, or that character resided in some database somewhere as a character waiting to be used? No, it appeared there. Therefore, you have presence or absence. And they said, and what they said is Jesus thought where he was, in the state he was, changed his environment and surroundings until he was in that room with those people. So I hope that gives you an idea of how the spirit world works. And once you start understanding the powers of Jesus, the power he had of his mind, right? I remember when I was young and I read the Bible and I thought, you can't walk on water. And how can you make, 5 loaves of bread feed 5,000 people? I think I'm getting this wrong. Well, the answer is, when you're the master of the game and we are in this logical construct, this simulator, so to speak, you can do what you want to, but you can make resources out of thin air. And the Spiritism say there's no such thing as miracles on earth or in the spirit world. There's only things you don't understand. So, okay, let me get to the next question. So I hope that helps answer that, and I hope it doesn't confuse anybody. Okay, so here is another question. It's like a group of 3 questions. Hi, I just started a new job. At first, I really liked it, and everyone seemed nice. I felt blessed to have found this job. But lately, I discovered that my co-workers are distrustful and gossip. At times, I feel like I've let my guard down and maybe overshared. Now I'm not sure if I can trust them, or if they're generally are nice people or not. How do I deal with this from a spiritist perspective? Thank you, and sorry for the long separate messages. Okay, so you are dealing with humans on Earth, and it's good that and that's the way you should be, right? So first of all, your attitude's wonderful. You liked them, you liked everybody, and you gave everyone the benefit of the doubt. You weren't overly suspicious, and you let people, and you shared with them. And yes, so now you're afraid of oversharing because they'll have malicious gossip about you, and that is a very real thing on Earth. So as a spiritist, you understand the people around you. You do not reveal any more of anything you think is important that you do not want to reveal in your life. What you revealed, you revealed. You stick to that story. And you forgive everyone. But what you do at work is, and of course, and I understand this is difficult because gossip is the biggest, fun thing you can do at work, right? That's the recreation at work, is to sit around and gossip about how you and your group know everything and everyone else doesn't know anything and your manager doesn't know anything and all that, right? We've all done that. But what you can do, though, is do not partake in malicious gossip. Now, it doesn't mean you can't talk about your coworkers if you're asked about their skill level or their ability to do the job. You try to be positive. You try to give them the benefit of the doubt. You try, if you have coworkers and if they can't do the job, you try to either help them or move them into a position where they can succeed. But what you do, and it will take time, what you do is you'll get a reputation of someone who doesn't really gossip. And if people start gossiping, you just decline, you don't say anything. Or you, better yet, you say something nice. And so the important part is just to understand that they're human, and that the fact that you do not gossip and you do not partake in this destructive behavior means that you are ahead of them on the spiritual maturity curve. And we all have to recognize, on this planet of atonement, we have many people on different levels of spiritual maturity. When you have people on the very low level who have come from primitive planets, and they're usually your basic criminals, someday they'll be great spirits. Someday they'll be wonderful people. But right now they don't listen to their conscience, and they take what they want, they do what they want, and they don't care about other people. That's a primitive spirit. we see lots of them around us. Now in heaven, they're not allowed in heaven. It's an exclusive club. You don't have to work with them. But on earth, you are here to be trained to work with everyone because eventually, when you're a higher and higher spirit, and then you come down and you're someone's guardian angel or you're some high angel, like Gabriel came down and you're talking to people, and you're talking to people just like the people you're working with. I mean, imagine the angel Michael or Gabriel talking to the shepherders during the time of Abraham, or whatever times that people at any time in the Bible. I mean, the people they're talking to they were vindictive, they were mean, they lied to hide anything they did wrong. I mean, we're not told the whole story, and they had to be and they had to be nice and they had to be constructive, but they had to be forceful and focused on what they wanted these people to do. So you need to consider yourself that, okay, I'm just going to try to be an example of those people. And, it took me a long time. And at the end of my career at work, I'm retired now, is I had a reputation of not gossip about someone. In fact, I remember my boss was telling me one lady, I was asked about a person. I said, well, I think this is a better job for them. And my boss said, yeah, one lady said, Brian never says anything bad about anybody, but he said, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Well, I didn't say that. I just said, I don't think he can fulfill that job. Of course, she exaggerated a bit, but that's okay. But the fact is, I had a reputation of not saying bad things about people. Of course, that's late in life. Early in life, I was horrible. I will confess that right now. So that is what I would say. And just understand that, right? It's like understanding your kid. Your kid's going to be selfish. They're going to lie. They're going to hide things. And you just have to keep day after day teaching them, like, nah, it's not a good philosophy of doing that. Your life's going to be much less stress if you try to stop the lying and hiding things. Some people learn, some people don't. And again, people are going to be like this as an adult. Everyone has free will. They have the free will to take whatever you tell them and then tell everybody else. And that's why what you do as you go higher and higher, first of all, you try to have nothing to be ashamed of, which all of us do. I'm not saying do it. I'm just saying that's a goal. And then you just don't reveal, and you just don't excessively talk. You just say, yeah, I did, right? This is what I did on a weekend, nothing special. And you don't go into details if you think someone could use that against you. And you don't talk. The main thing is you don't talk bad about any other people at work, because what do people at work love to do? When I was in management position, the best thing they love to do is come and tell me about what other people said and did. And especially if they said something against me, they love telling you what someone else said bad, about you, even though they said probably things worse, right? That's human nature. That's what families and brothers and sisters and big families do. It's all over. Don't partake in that. Be constructive. So I hope that helps. Okay. Okay. If any other questions, I'll put back up on the list of questions. Um, is there any correlation between the mental health epidemic and moving towards a planet of regeneration? Yes. Um, absolutely. In fact, I've just been reading the book On the Way to a World of Regeneration. And there is a speech by Becerras de Menezes talking about three main things. In fact, I'm going to do 3 videos of that. And I might actually do a whole Q&A on it also, where I can go through this speech and I can dissect it for people. And it was about how the sickness, I can't use these words, we're on YouTube. Why was it allowed to occur? Who did it? And I know this is not to do with the mental health epidemic, but it's a side issue. And what does it mean for us individually? And one of the things he said is that people have lost their spiritual anchor, their moral anchor. And when you lose your spiritual and moral anchor, you are just buffeted by things you don't even understand, and the rules of the game change. So let me get into better detail. Is right now we're out at the epitome of materialism, probably in our culture. First of all, anything spiritual is is tried to be crushed immediately. Any you know opinion that doesn't correspond to the woke opinion is denied, and you're canceled. And of course, in the overall opinion that we have now is that we are here on Earth. We are just like this accident of life that uh, and that we have no purpose other than to have as much pleasure in our own lives as possible before we die and we're gone forever. Now, of course, there would be this epidemic of mental health. Nothing's important. There's no structure in your life. There's no structure to your morals. Why are you on Earth? What's your purpose on Earth? Is to copy and buy the same shoes as some celebrity, and go to the same vacation site as some celebrity, and work work yourself to death, so you can't afford a yacht, but maybe you can afford a small motorboat, right? And do you want to completely, if you have a set of morals, do you want to completely deny them and make yourself stressed and walk on everyone in order to achieve that level of making that much money? That's what we're placed with right now. Now, I went through that game. I really, with all my heart, I strove to become higher and higher in the chain in big corporations. And as I did that, I was more and more stressed. One day, I just collapsed on the bed. My stomach was tight. I had to take a tranquilizer, and then slowly, I found out that this is not me. I cannot step over people on my way upward of what I thought was upward. And that will cause a mental health epidemic. Now, it's not a, it's not a, well, it depends on the correlation we're talking about. The mental health epidemic is not a cause of moving toward a planet of regeneration. Is a symptom of the pinnacle of our material society and culture. So what we are being told is there are going to be certain things that will happen on this earth, and I think they will come up within the next couple of years. And I'm not talking about we're all going to disappear or anything. I'm just talking about there are going to be a uh, a great revival of spirituality. How that's going to occur, I do not know. I've always tried to second guess what the spirit world is going to do next, and usually I'm wrong. And they always are smarter than I am. Thank heavens for that. You would want that, because even they say, the spirit world says, the earth, the human race, us as a collective humanity, cannot carry on in this manner. We're supposed to come here, we're supposed to be on earth to become better people, to become more focused, to become self disciplined, to become more loving, fraternal, charitable, and honest people. And the spirit world is not telling us to reject materialism completely. We're supposed to be here. We have to know we are here for a purpose. We do have to work. We have to help our family. We have to help our immediate family, our close, the maybe other family, help other people. We cannot be a burden on society. We should help other people who can't make it in society right now, to a certain extent, not to make them so they're dependent on help all the time. So we do have to work, but we need to give our set of priorities so we can read and study about spirituality, about spiritism, about the spirit world, and how to improve ourselves. And these people who have mental health problems are completely, not always, are locked in this materialistic culture, and they're buffeted by whatever the newest thing is. And then they listen to the news, and their anxiety level is up to level 10 because now everyone's worried about X. And last week, everyone was worried about Y. And overarching is the whole climate, the whole earth is going to be this fiery ball, and all the water is going to disappear. None of that's going to happen. We are in a simulator. We are being showed, yeah, we got to keep the planet clean. And the spirit will move us along so we do these things correctly. There's no reason we should do what we can for the environment and helping other people, but there's no reason to be panicked. And the other reason not to be panicked is once you know, and the Spiritism tells us, that you are an immortal spirit, and then when you die, you will still be you. You won't be this all-knowing angel, and you won't be this this free flowing spirit, like not knowing where you are or absorbed into the Borg. No, you're going to be you. You're going to be free-willed, and your free will is going to be respected. And therefore, any anxiety you have about getting to the end of your life should be like, instead of anxiety, it's like, oh, I'm almost done with this summer camp. I hope I did well, right? I have no fear of death. It doesn't, it's like, oh, it'll be interesting when I get back, right? I get back to my real life. You are immortal. You will live life after life. So the spirit world knows we have this mental health epidemic. That's a great question, and it's true. And people are taking a lot of different medicines and medications for that, which doesn't necessarily make things better. If they prayed and meditated and studied, then they could improve themselves. But that's for each person to decide. So I hope that helps answer that question. Okay, here's kind of a corollary. Why would we have such a huge amount of people losing grip on perception? Oh, yeah, answer this question first. People from Amazon who use ayahuasca, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I apologize. Which realm are they reaching? Astral, spiritual, and what's the difference between those? So I do not know which realm they are reaching. I do think that they are having the ability uh, to do astral traveling and spiritual plane. I know that some people say there's an astral plane and there's a spiritual plane, and then some spirit, even some spirits say that's kind of the astral plane is kind of the plane around the earth, and the spiritual plane is more ethereal. So to me, in Spiritism, we talk about the lower zone, which is above the crust of the earth up to heaven, and then there's the dark abyss, which is below, which is pretty criminal spirits. In the lower zone, or people are still tied materialistic to earth, still not a pleasant place. And then there's heaven, and you can travel when you're asleep. Naturally, you can spiritually travel to these worlds, right? The lower zone, the dark abyss. You can go into heaven if you're allowed to, if you have enough spiritual maturity, or you can go to other worlds that fit your level. You can only go to the level of your spiritual maturity. So if you're not very spiritually mature, you can't go travel astral traveling or spiritual traveling to heaven because you're not allowed in there. But you can go even to other planets in their lower zones. There's plenty of places to be. So Spiritism really doesn't talk about the difference between astral and spiritual, but so it's just mainly at what the level you can go. Because there's, first of all, it's between astral and spiritual. It's implying that there are only two other dimensions, and in fact, first of all, there's multiple physical dimensions, and who knows how many dimensions within the spirit plane. We're in a very complicated, dense data structure where we can decide at ourselves, depending on our level and the set of our permissions of what we can see or not see, and where we can roam or not roam. So I think it's limiting, those words are limiting the scope of an understanding of really what you are and where you live in. Now, the people who use these type of drugs to free themselves, I do believe they free themselves so they can, their spirit, their paraspirit, I should say, which is connected to their spirit, can then roam around in the spirit world, depending on their level, right? Just because you use drug doesn't mean you can go higher, right? It just gives you probably this better ability to free your paraspirit from your physical body and roam to different places. Now, where these people roam to depends on their level of spiritual maturity. It's just like people with near death experiences. Some people with near death experiences have exhilarating, exciting experiences because they are on earth, they're doing good. They went into one of the levels of heaven. They met their group. They talked about what they had to do. They usually a lot of times they had a meeting. They looked at their past life, or they went through and they looked at parts of the universe and they were exposed to maybe some future and all this information. Others went down into the depths, saw, and I've heard speakers on both, saw horrible things and saw, oh, this is what happens when I am mean to other people. And they come back like, oh, I better not be mean to other people. So again, when people are on these different things, right, like peyote or whatever they're on, they will experience depending upon their character and personality. So I hope that helps explains that. There's a lot there. It's the other thing is people on Earth, and we believe ourselves is just like in the old times that the Earth was the center of the universe and the sun and all the planets revolved around the Earth. Well, we know that's not true anymore, right? But we still, like even in the science fiction movies, we still believe that being a human with emotions and feelings and spontaneous creativity is like no AI can ever surpass that, and that only we as humans have certain capabilities that is impossible to artificially construct. Well, I think that once you understand the spirit world and once you understand you are immortal and you live forever, and you don't just die once and go live on the Elysian fields and sing hymns and sit in your comfort chair and drink a drink with a little umbrella in it for eternity. Once you know that that doesn't really happen, you read the spirits book. Even the spirits say, when Allan Kardec, one of the questions say, well, is heaven like the Elysian fields? And they said, if it was like that, that would truly be hell, because we get really bored fast if we're going to live here forever, right? The answer is no. You still have work, you still learn, you still have fun, you work with groups, all that. You're still doing things. And as spiritualists, there's so many different levels to explore, on and on. There's trillions of planets that are inhabited. There's different dimensions of different planets. There's different planets in this solar system on different dimensions. In fact, we'll see these planets when we move to a higher level of a planet. But that's all because we are this complex logical structure. We are the spirit. We're encapsulated logic that flows freely through this database created by an entity called God that we have very little clue about. And we have immense power because we can affect, depending on our level and a set of parameters, we can affect our own environment. We can create houses. We can create lakes. We can create whole mountain ranges. And usually you do this with other spirits, but I'm just giving you an example. It's very complex. Whereas these science fiction movies, they always, usually what they do, and I'm generalizing here, is if they talk about immortality, they talk about immortality as a physical being. And at some point in time, that you'll get tired of being immortal because there's be nothing new, and you'll voluntarily cut yourself off. There's books like that, right? Or if there's AI, the AI will then all of a sudden become sentient, means they're self-aware, and they'll say, "Hey, these humans are they're not very good. Let's wipe them out of the planet." That's not going to happen because this planet is controlled by Jesus Christ and his ministers, and the purpose of the planet is for us to be here on earth to learn to become pure spirits. And by the way, we are more powerful AI than any AI we can make. That by design. That's not going to happen. And so these are difficult concepts, and maybe sometimes I go too far, and I don't know if I frighten people off, but I think you should at least think about these things. Really, what does immortality mean? What does being a spirit mean? What does dying mean? And all dying does mean is getting rid of this physical body and being free in the spirit world. Your free will is perfectly respected in the spirit world. Okay, let me go to the next question. Where was I? Here we go. Oh, yes. Why? Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure, Julia. So she says, "Thank you so much for introducing us to Spiritism. That's what I'm here for, and I love if anyone asks me questions, and please ask away." Okay. Why would we have such a huge amount of people losing grip on perception with depression and anxiety and so dependent on medications? It feels as though our human evolution has set the state of health human body aside for the sake of progress. And again, and I kind of answered that in the previous question, but it's the fact that we are let loose from the dock of divine law and divine morality, is that we are losing grip because we have nothing to grip on to. We have nothing to believe in. If all we do is believe that we are carbon-based life forms here for just a reason, and that we should feel inferior because someone else has more money and more fame and more power than us, why wouldn't you have depression and anxiety? You're anxious because you've not kept up with your neighbors, and your feelings that you're inferior to your neighbors, and that you have to be entertained constantly because our attention span is so short now, right? And because our attention span, because we don't feel, right? People use drugs and other things and go on medications because they've lost the ability to feel. And the problem is that we think it's someone else's responsibility to make us feel, to make us happy. And everyone knows internally, and if you listen to your conscience, that set of divine laws implanted to us by God, that it is your own responsibility. And you are not here on earth to have fun. Well, it's good that you can when you need to. You're on earth to learn, and you're on earth to improve your character and your personality. And the path to improve your character and personality is to strive through trials and tribulations and to grow as a person. Now, instead, what we hear on earth is that when anything bad happens to us, it's like, oh, something bad happened to me. It's terrible, right? And you don't, instead of taking ownership, we immediately try to label ourselves as a victim because it's never our fault. It's always someone else's fault. Well, no. I did a video of this. Don't blame others, blame yourself. And don't blame yourself like hurting yourself, but analyze what you did wrong and make changes in how you approach life, approach other people. That's why you are on earth, is you're on earth to learn to take out your primitive emotions, hate, anger, jealousy. And God, we're full of that. Look at how people comment on each other in the internet. Look how people treat each other in the real world. Look at even that we see violence daily. And sometimes we say, oh, yeah, if you say something bad, someone has a right to be violent. No, 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 you don't. You don't. No matter what you say, if it's as stupid as you can possibly think, that person needs to learn tolerance. Because now, why do you need to learn tolerance? People say, well, shouldn't people be taught to be nice and then, like struck down if they're not? No. If you cancel a person because they said something you do not agree with, all you're doing is instilling fear into that person so they never say that again. And so what happens is they don't change their attitude and their character, they just filter everything. The spirit world wants us to change our attitude and character. The spirit world wants that person to say, I feel terrible making that person feel uncomfortable, and I should not do that again. And so really what it is, when someone says something that you don't like, and say, that makes me feel uncomfortable. Um, I humbly ask for you not to do that again. And if they do it again, you just say, oh, and and then you say, okay, well, that person's not mature enough. In some subsequent life, they will be, or maybe later on, 10 years from now, they'll understand what I said, and just accept that level of immaturity. So that is, it's really up to us, and really have to do is to turn off. We have to turn off the current mainstream media, turn off anything or any group that makes you feel anxious or stressed if you don't conform to their ideas. Go to groups that make you feel accepted and that want to help you learn on your own with your own self-discipline, and divorce yourself from people who are upset and angry all the time. You don't have to be that way, and you don't want to be with them, and you don't want to watch these late night shows and these sitcoms or these things about people feeling and stabbing people in the back. Don't watch those. Get rid of that off your repertoire. Okay, I got some questions here. Okay, here's a question. I've tried everything to reach my spirit guides, and lately I've had connection issues, not feeling they're listening. Interesting. Sorry, I had to get some water. Okay. So, first of all, your spirit guides are always listening. They may not be answering you in the way that you think they should be answering you. Let me give you an example. This one person died and went to one of the levels of heaven. And he was walking through heaven, and this person in heaven was like, doing something. And then there was a spirit behind him, and he telegraphed to him what this guy needed to hear. And he says, oh, can I help you? He goes, yeah, I'm walking through this land. I think I in, somewhere in heaven, but I thought my friends would come and greet me when I died. And he goes, well, you're correct. You are in heaven, and your friends have greeted you, but you do not recognize them. And you do not recognize them because you have a certain idea of what heaven should be and where you should be and at what level you should be. And you have this black and white idea, this concept. And heaven is not black and white like that. And therefore, you have not the spiritual maturity to recognize your friends. And also, you're not seeing your wife, because even though you consider your wife to be somewhat intellectually inferior, you love her, and that's into your favor, she is actually at a higher level of heaven because she has absorbed the lessons of love and wisdom more fully than you have. And he goes, thank you for telling me that. And then the guy behind him also came and he says, look, there's a spirit right next to you now that wants to help you. And he goes, there is? Yes. He goes, reach out your hand. And he reached out his hand and he felt another hand take his. And then he just all of a sudden knew. He knew what was going on, um, what he had done wrong, right? And he knew kind of the path he should be following. So that happens. And sometimes if you're trying to reach your guardian angel or your spirit guides, right? Because your guardian angel is always attached to you. They may be a couple of things. One is they're saying maybe you need to let's see how you make some decisions on yourself, by yourself, using your conscience. And if you're being inspired to do the right thing, maybe they are talking to you and inspiring you, but you don't recognize it as such. I mean, there's many things that spirit guides did for me that I didn't recognize until after the fact. Um, one example is in high school, I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy and become a pilot. Well, in my senior year of high school, my eyes went out on me, right? When I was playing baseball and center field is like, and they go, I started missing. They're like, right over my head. They were fuzzy. The spirit world gave me that defect so I could not go in that direction. And later I knew that was on purpose because much later, 20 years later, I went on some of these simulator rides at Disney World. And there's this, usually I was okay, but there's this one ride that really, if I was in a simulator ride and I could move the stick and, jostle and bustle up and down where I wanted to, it never bothered me. But I was on this one simulator ride that was pretty abrupt and I had no control over it. And I got off that ride and I was just sweaty. I was faint. And then later on when I discovered Spiritism, I said, okay, you know what? First they got my eyes, and then they made that I could never pass any type of flying a jet. I would have been disoriented. I would have been washed out. They weren't going to let me do that. I found out later that in a previous life I had been a pilot. But that was not going to be my direction. So, in other words, you could be having little signs and signals that you do not think about. Now, probably you're thinking that they're not listening to you, or not connecting with you, because in the past, most probably you felt like they were connecting to you. I don't know if that's correct, and now they seem not to be. So again, there could be several reasons for that. One is to say, okay, I don't want you too dependent on us. That makes sense. The other one is they're waiting for you to study and get to the next level. And they're using that as a positive reinforcement, saying, hey, we're going to talk to you. We're going to talk to you, but raise yourself up. There you go. I said, I may have grieved my Holy Spirit by doing a stupid thing. Yes. And therefore, probably subconsciously, you are, without you may knowing it, you're denying yourself the luxury of communication. And you feel, this is most probably really what's happening, is you feel you do not deserve guidance from the higher plane. Whereas in reality, we all deserve it. Look, there was this wonderful guy who had this near-death experience. And they went through his life, and they showed him this one stupid thing after another. And he said, stop. I want to examine why I did that stupid thing, right? Why was I mean to that person? Why did I make that decision? They go, oh, not important. Because really, for you making that mistake, it's probably more important for you to make that mistake and analyze your behavior and then make some real rewiring of your brain and put into the foundation of your character that I will never do that again. That is more important than you not making the mistake and not learning that lesson. Think about that. Is as this person who had a near death experience said, finally understood that everything is as important as it is unimportant. You, Julia, are an immortal spirit. You are here to learn. If you were perfect, you wouldn't be on this planet. None of us listening here, I would not be on this planet. I'd be somewhere nicer, right? I wouldn't worry about paying my taxes and having someone run over me as I drive because everyone would be really good drivers. No, we're here to learn. We are here to rewire our brains. We're here to rip out our primitive emotions and replace them with advanced emotions. And the only way you can do that is to go through trials and tribulations that will cause that the stimuli will come at you and cause you to do deep introspection. And what appears to be is you've had inspirations and choices made, and you now know you made the wrong choice in a certain circumstance. That is learning, that is improving. So I would recommend you meditate and you pray, whatever you think is best. You say, oh, I finally understand. I did something stupid, but I've learned from it. What more can I learn? Can you help me? Right? Open up, because that that is the greatest pleasure your guardian angels can have, is that you've learned something and that you want to be on the right path. They all expect us to go on the right choices, the wrong path and the wrong choices. It's part of being human. That's why whenever you read about these life reviews, right, of people who've led a reasonably good life, right, not criminals, you read about life reviews, is like, oh, they were so nice. They were so nice to me. They didn't point out all these things and say, oh, that was dumb. No, why? Because your guardian angels have been exactly where you are today. We've all done things that were wrong and hurtful and harmful, not only to other people, but mainly to ourselves. And the hardest thing to do is to forgive ourselves and to rectify what we did wrong. I have a lot of things to rectify. And that's why people, when they're in the spirit world, they actually help. And when you're in some of the levels of heaven, you actually help plan your next life, because you want to say, oh, I got to work on my selfishness. I have to work on my pride. As an example, I know this one person, great singer, but he has some other problems that stop him from, I think, from ever becoming popular. But he's very smart. And my guess is that he used his fame in a previous life because of his just overabundance of talent, and he used it kind of selfishly, right? And now in this life is like, okay, well, we'll still give you the talent, but the big show is not for you. Why others who may have little talent and yet become famous, right, and wealthy, well, they have actually a harder trial. Their trial is, how are you going to handle this? Are you going to be humble and a nice person? Are you going to be a what and think you're better than everybody else? And because that's our culture. Again, this is our materialistic culture. Is if you're rich and a billionaire, that automatically means you are superior and smarter than anyone with less money than you are. And of course, the spirit world says that means nothing. When these politicians who are wealthy and powerful go into the spirit world, a lot of them are not even going to be able to enter heaven. And the ones that are do, that do may be sitting there and learning from someone who's been in a simple menial job, but has been here to been here to reform certain character aspects of themselves and become a better person. There's an example of this. There's this spirit who's in charge of some complex projects in heaven, and he had multiple disciplinary projects from people from different levels of heaven who came up from different cultures and races and all that. Well, he went to Earth. On Earth, he was a simple shoe repairman, a cobbler, as they called him back when he was there. And as a cobbler, when he died, he hadn't yet been allowed to learn about his total life, right? Because they do that only when you're ready, right? They don't give you all, they don't open up in your brain all your information because you can't handle it. And he's in this little bungalow and feeling very humble and said, "Hey, just lucky I'm here. I've been a cobbler, I've been poor." And the spirit walks in, and the spirit says, "Hello, how are you doing?" He goes, "Fine." He goes, "Have you read that book?" He goes, "Yeah." And there was a book on his bookshelf. It goes, "But I don't think the book is good for people on this level, because the book really talks about people on a higher level and bringing people with different experiences in their physical life together and making and having them work as a team." And the higher spirit says, "Well, do you know who wrote this book?" And he goes, "No." He goes, "Well, look at it again." And he looked at the book, and it was his name on it. He goes, "No, that's not me." He goes, "Nah, that's you." He goes, "No, I'm not worthy. I am not worthy of that." So I this can't be me. He goes, "Yes, it is." He says, "Look, I will tell you, your humbleness shows you right now that you were that person. And in fact, we followed your life. And we know that when you made shoes for people, you were more worried about making them last as long as possible because you knew that they had no money to fix those shoes. So that's how things work. Now, let me get to the next. You said something else. Because I think I'm not supposed to judge, and I've been bad judging, but my soul contract says to become unconditionally loving, I can't judge. You know, and look, loving unconditional is the plateau of atonement we want to attain. And I remember talking to this one lady who says, and I was talking about love, and that as she was having dreams and visits from the spirit world. And I was saying, "Yeah, you need to love everybody." He goes, "I do love her. I love everybody in my family." I said, "Yeah, but you need to start working on loving people outside of your family, outside of your tribe, so to speak." But that is really difficult. Jesus did it on earth. Socrates did that on earth. Mother Teresa did that on earth. Your contract your contract in your mind may say to become unconditionally loving. But I will bet you if you read it carefully, it is to be on the path to become unconditionally loving. That's all that matters. It's not exactly what you've attained, it's your trajectory. Remember, you have multiple lives to learn. And what is most exciting to the spirit world and your guardian angels is your upward path. Are you learning? Are you more loving than you were before? You're not going to become a pure spirit, a pure angel in one life. It may have been done. There may have been really superior people. But it's not easy. So I believe you're too hard on yourself. And it goes, okay. Apparently, this is the same person. Apparently, I've chosen one of the most difficult life path because I've gone through so much suffering. I don't know how I'm here in a physical body. So you are probably one of those people who came from a more advanced planet. And people who come from advanced planet, you may be here to help other people. And it's really difficult for people from a higher level planet to um, to withstand the amount of chaos and meanness on Earth. I'm sure I've come from Earth and other bad planets because I just expect chaos and inequality and injustice. And if there's not, it's like, oh, we're lucky at that point. But for many people who come from higher planets, and this is why many of them become alcoholics or addicts, because they really can't. It's like intuitively they know they came from a fair, nicer, equitable place where people loved each other and they supported each other. And here you are in this place where that doesn't really exist as a rule. In parts, it does, but as a rule, it doesn't happen. And therefore, it creates stress and anxiety. So, and there was a talk by a spirit, and he was welcoming. There are people, and in fact, now and beginning in the year 2000, how old you are, but beginning, actually, it's been all throughout history, but beginning around the year 2000, there's been a whole new, huge amount of raft of people coming from other planets to help us rise in vibrational level to the next level of planets, right? And that's why I'm saying eventually, within a year or two, I think something spiritually is going to happen to help us rise, right, and become more spiritually advanced. And the spirit says, look, you're on here on Earth. You're not used to Earth. You're going to be attacked for being a nice person. You're going to be hated because you're a nice person. They're gonna envy you because you're probably, you're not, you're probably look pretty nice because, all these things you're going to have advantages that you may not think they're advantages, but other people are going to be jealous of you. And that you are now thrown into this cauldron of chaos and wars and trying to survive and be fired and have to, people backstabbing you even if you're successful. These are all things you're not used to. But always know that the love of Jesus Christ is with you and that we are your guardian angels. We are with you and we will help you all that we can. And I think is that you need, if that's your wish, right? And I'm trying to say this in all humbleness because I cannot put myself in your shoes, is that you're going through a tough time and the inner parts of your soul is not used to this this current ride you're on. It's it's a little bit rough around the edges. Think about how people who who've been on a life like here and it failed miserably, and then some people are like that. Nah, you're not allowed to come back, even on the planet of atonement. We're going to put you on a primitive planet, and now they go back and there's not even street lights and flush toilets, and there's smoke in your hut, right, all the time. Imagine how they feel. Well, it's kind of like many of these souls that come from higher places feel like, we think we're modern, right? There's flush toilets, there's lights, there's computers. It's nothing compared to what they had. They had libraries where you could look at your past lives. They had cured almost everything. People were supportive of each other. I mean, it's just a different environment. And yet, maybe you and others have volunteered to come to this environment to help on a most wonderful mission. And the most self-sacrificing mission you could do is to come and be a beacon of light and to help others know how to improve themselves. So I hope that helps a little bit. I could be completely wrong. Somehow I don't feel I'm too far off. Hopefully I'm directionally correct. So I've gone over my time. I want to thank everyone for being with me tonight. Those were wonderful questions that we were going through. And Julia, I hope you feel better. I know you're going to be connected. intuitively know that. I'm not a medium, but I think it's important. Oh, let me answer this one question before I go here again. When people mention this light during NDEs, which realm is this light from? All people see it. Do all people see it when they die? And the light, and that is in the spirit world. So the light, so as you go higher and higher in the spirit world, the light, it becomes more and more bright. And in fact, when, let's say, you're just a normal human on earth and you go to heaven, right, and you see one of these advanced spirits, and they haven't made themselves denser to fit within your environment, to you they look like bright angels, and you can, because you think they have wings because they're so bright, they're fuzzy, you may get, like their face, but beyond that it's hard to discern because they're too bright. And what that is that's really the love of God reflecting off of them. And that's why, as a spirit, you can go at your level or below, but you can't go higher. Not because there's a big gate or wall there, is because if you go, you feel too uncomfortable. So now when spirits come to earth, they go, oh my God, this is a dark place. And it's dark because so many people have this darkness in their inner soul. And in the spirit world, you are on the outside, what you are on the inside. And if you do in this NDE and you go to this higher plane, you see light. You see the absence of darkness. And not all people see it when they die. Only people who, by the law of affinity, will go to a higher realm. People who go to a lower realm will still see darkness. They won't see the light. I hope that answers that to you. That was a great question. Okay. Please join me. I have other questions. Join me next Monday, and I love these questions and answers. And if you have other questions you forgot, put them in the comment sections. I will copy and paste them and put them on my list. God bless to all of you. God bless.